will stand up again. We will march again. We will preach again. We will organize again. We are black. We are white. We are Latino. We are Native American. We are Democrat. We are Republican. We are independent. We are people of faith. We are people not of faith. We are natives and immigrants. We are business leaders and workers and unemployed. We are doctors and the uninsured. We are gay. We are straight. We are students. We are parents. We are retirees. We are North Carolina, and we're here, and we ain't going nowhere. Forward together. There's an Old Testament lesson in the scripture that says, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. And I've given it to you on the altar to make atonement for your soul. For it is by the blood, by reason of the life, that makes atonement. In the New Testament it says, and Jesus took up the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them and saying, drink all of it. This is my blood. He said this before he was about to be convicted by immoral laws. This is my blood shed for you. One of the great poets of the Harlem Renaissance said, Claude McKay said, if we must die, oh, let us die nobly, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. As I sat in that courtroom today, I thought about Earlene Palmer, who's at home, who's with her husband, but how she has led the fight along with Larry Womble against voter suppression. You know, 945 of us first went to jail, and Earlene Palmer was there every night until the last one came out. I thought about Maya Angelou in that courtroom when she said, like a tree planted by the water, we shall not be moved. As I sat there today, Dr. Spearman, and heard Carolyn Q. Coleman, and I say this with the deepest respect, a woman who helped raise me, a woman who now is in a wheelchair but refuses to quit. And I watched her with her eyes squinted from the struggle of the years testify and tell the stories of suffering that gave us the right to vote. Then I looked at Miss Eaton and how going into that courtroom they patted her down and asked her to remove everything, and at 93 years old, as she was going through security, she was singing under her breath, ain't gonna let nobody. I saw Miss Perry on the stand. Though she didn't take the stand, and somehow she was able to project herself even into Miss Coleman. And you could tell Miss Coleman not only telling her story, but Mary Perry's story and the story of all of the midwives of liberation, the women who have fought. As I thought about them, something inside of me wanted to scream and say, not again. What must be on the mind of Tillis and Berger and McCory to take people through these battles again? Then I looked at the young people on the other end who will be testifying, and I could not help but think how many of our foreparents fought hoping that we would never have to fight for these rights again. But after my soul finished screaming, I felt steadfastness come in. And something said to tell all of you all, whether you have fought these battles before or whether this is your first time fighting these battles, you ought to say in your soul, if it's our time to fight, then so be it, because we are fighting. And we are fighting for rights that came through the blood. And they can't be given up now. Let us not forget that in these laws, Tillis and Barber, before they roll voting rights back in North Carolina had gone from 40% voting, one of the lowest stats in the nation, as my good friend Linda Sutton said. And now with these new laws that before they did their mess, North Carolina was number one in voter turnout from 2004 to 2008. Let us not forget that today and this week we fight and litigate in court against what unmistakably is the worst attack on voting rights and the worst attempt to comprehensively abridge the right to vote since Jim Crow. Turn to your neighbor and say, make no mistake. Let us not forget that House Bill 589 started in the House of Representatives in North Carolina, where Tom Tillis is the Speaker. Which means as the Speaker, he had to say, let this bill come forward. And let it be known that he cannot now call himself a moderate after he's passed an extreme voter suppression bill like this. Let us not forget that House Bill 589 is not about voter ID or voter integrity. Well, it is about voter ID, but in a more sinister way. It is about the intentional identification of voters that extremists feel may not support their political ideology, and because of that, they conjure up and pass laws to suppress and exclude those voters and their opportunities at the ballot box. This is a sinister form of voter ID. When you sit in a room and say, black folk may not vote for me, cut them out. Women may not vote for me, cut them out. Young people may not vote for me, cut them out. Latinos may not vote for me, cut it out. But we're going to make them cut it out because you cannot have our right to vote. Let us not forget. Let us not forget that this bill was passed after Shelby. Yes, don't y'all forget, turn your name and say after Shelby. After Shelby had destroyed Section 5 pre-clearance by annihilating Section 4. Now listen now. After that, after Shelby, the House bill went from 12 pages to 57 pages. In other words, they knew they couldn't go but so far if Section 5 was in place. But as soon as the Supreme Court wrongfully struck down Section 4, thereby ending Section 5, they began this role to change 40 different parts of our election law. And one of the senators said, now that the headache has been removed, let us not forget that this bill shows the nation. Say America, you better look at North Carolina. Because this bill shows the nation what these extreme right-wingers, especially in the South, are willing to do to suppress the vote without having to go through pre-clearance. That is why we need hearings on a Voting Rights Act amendment fix in the United States Congress, and that is why it must be amended to ensure that southern states like North Carolina and South Carolina and Alabama are covered. Let us not forget that since 1970, the Justice Department, listen, has had to intervene 60 times in North Carolina. The last 30 years, the Justice Department has had to come into North Carolina 60 times. to block voter suppression, which means we haven't had to just fight Republicans. Y'all better hear what I'm saying. This is a nonpartisan movement. We have had to fight Democrats too. Because when it comes to our voting rights, we'll fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. Now, Dr. Spearman, he began to open this up. The lawyer this morning for the legislature, for Tillis and Berger and Governor McCrory, said today to the judge that our claim should be dismissed. You were there, Mendez, because their laws are already being used. That's right. And to change now, to enjoin them now, that means stop them from being used, would disrupt the status quo. Did you hear it? Who was in there? Did you hear it? I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I could open better than that. And this is the logic they were saying. In other words, the law might be unconstitutional. The law might disenfranchise people. But Judge, we've already started using it. You can't stop us now. Well, that logic is flawed and deeply troubling and irrational. First, because when Tom Tillis and the North Carolina House proposed House Bill 5889, they overturned the status quo. For all of the national media here, you see, we're not trying to get new laws. We had new laws. Same-day registration was the status quo. 17 days of early voting was the status quo. Sunday voting was the status quo. Young people being able to register was the status quo. Not having a voter ID because we had signature attestation was the status quo. What they did was overturn the status quo. Now you can't have it both ways. And since 1870, this has been the status quo, that no state can abridge or deny the right to vote to any American citizen. But secondly, if not overturning the status quo is the extreme Tea Party philosophy of Berger, Tillis, and McCrory and their allies, if that's the philosophy by which they want to govern, that even when something is wrong, you don't overturn the status quo, well, I hate to inform them, Brother Imar, but that means you would be on the side of slavery. Because there was a time when slavery was the status quo. Oh, but somebody changed it. You would be on the side philosophically of not giving women the right to vote. Because one time women not having the right to vote was the status quo. You would be on the side of not doing away with separate but equal. Because one time separate but equal was the status quo. You would be on the side of not passing the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65 because there was a time that Jim Crow was the status quo. But let's give them a lesson in civics. Would y'all repeat after me? Democracy is about change and shifting the status quo whenever what is contrary to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank God for the people that fought the status quo when it was wrong. Finally here, we get ready to have an altar call. Let us not forget that our right to vote came through the blood. Came over a way that with tears has been watered, came treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Let us not forget, not just a Sunday, but Bloody Sunday, when bodies were put on the line so that the body of our politics of America could be changed to guarantee the protections of the Voting Rights Act. And it was the blood that gave life to the movement. It was the blood that gave us our right to vote. Nobody handed it to us. It was the blood of white people and black people and young people and old people. It was the blood. And people before us sacrificed because they refused to accept the status quo. Being killed, you know, and being beaten simply because you want justice, on the one hand, is an evil reality. And yet, isn't it amazing how God takes that which is meant for evil and turns it to good? I wish I had a witness here. It was the blood of mega efforts, evil, that God worked to good. It was the blood of 4 girls in a Birmingham jail. It was the blood of Jimmy Lee Jackson. It was the blood of a white Unitarian named James Reed. It was the blood of a white woman named Viola Risa. It was the blood of everyone beaten that Sunday that gave life to the movement. When the shedding of blood was shown on TV cameras all over the world, people came from everywhere and decided to take a stand. The blood of the martyrs filled the pen of history with the ink that would be used by a former segregationist named Lyndon Baines Johnson to sign the Voting Rights Act. And it was co-sponsored by a Republican and a Democrat because of the power of the blood. It was the blood that shamed this nation. And I stopped by to tell you there is still power in the blood. So when we fight in North Carolina, let us not merely fight a political fight. This is a moral fight. This is a fight of history. This is a blood fight. Every privilege we have came through the blood. Every voting right came through the blood. Every opportunity came through the blood. Every taste of freedom came through the blood. Every ounce of equality came through the blood. Yes, when this legislature and this governor attack the sick, that's bad enough, Brother Spearman. When they attack the unemployed, that's bad enough. When they attack the working poor and teachers and the LGBT community and labor rights and public education and children and veterans, that's bad enough. But when they attack the right to vote that came through blood, touch your neighbor and say they have picked a fight on another level. How dare them trample on the graves of the martyr? How dare them wipe their political feet in the blood of the slaughter? Just because hands that once picked cotton can now pick presidents and governors and legislatures. Now you want to change the rules just because of 2 black girls are having pajama parties in the White House from a black man and a black woman. Now you want to change the rules. Well, you better wait a minute, and if you don't know, you better ask somebody. Our right to vote was signed in blood, and when you mess with it, because it's blood, it's a blood right, and it's been blood bought, it brings us to life. When you mess with it, it stirs our souls. So let us remember the blood. Tell our lawyers, somebody, remember the blood and litigate like you never litigated before. Tell black people, remember the blood and register like you never registered before. In fact, tell everybody, red, yellow, black, or white, remember the blood and organize like you never organized it before. Remember the blood so that we can beat back these extremist attacks. Remember the blood So we'll stop having commemoration services about what happened 50 years ago, and we'll consecrate a new movement right here, right now. Because I'm here to tell you, there's power. There's power. Wonder-working power in the blood. Too many people died. Too many people suffered. Too many people sacrificed. There's power. 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 Wonder-working power in the blood. Slap your neighbor a high five and say, neighbor, we can't give up now. Say, neighbor, we can't sit down now. Say, neighbor, racism can't have its way now. There's power. 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 Yeah, power. If the blood of the martyrs can't move, then nothing can move you. But if we will be motivated by the blood, can't no tea mess with the blood. Y'all don't know what I'm saying? Hey, God. Huh? Can't no amount of money mess with the blood. Watch this. How many of y'all got children? How many, if somebody pays you, you gonna leave your own child alone? How many of you, if somebody messes with your child, no matter how much money they have, if they touch your child and make your child bleed, they've got a fight on their hand? Tell your neighbor there's power. There's power. Power in the blood. There's power. Power in the blood. Come here, Miss Allen. Before we go.
Freedom never dies, I say. Freedom never dies. No law can kill the dreams we hold. Freedom never dies. It seems I hear Medgar's voice. From the earth his blood still cries. No law can kill the dreams we hold. Freedom never dies. And it seems I hear Harry Moore. From the earth his voice still cries. No law can kill the dreams we hold. Freedom never dies. Say it with me. Freedom never dies, I say. Freedom never dies. No law can kill the dreams we hold. Freedom never dies. Freedom never dies, I say. Freedom never dies. No law can kill the dreams we hold. Freedom never dies. Well, it seems I hear Medgar's voice. From the earth his blood still cries. No bomb can kill the dreams we hold. Freedom never dies. Freedom never dies, I say. Freedom never dies. No law can kill the dreams we hold. Freedom never dies. And I know we hear Harry Moore. From the earth his voice still cries. No law can kill the dreams we hold. Freedom never dies. Freedom never dies, I say. Freedom never